Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to talk about Libra Doko Roshi, who has been added to the game fairly recently. Now he's an Astro character, so you can either redeem him for free with various different currencies or just buy him outright. Now in terms of his skills, I'll go through all of them, but I can tell you upfront he's a very good character, so definitely do get him, like 100% get him. It's his top tier for sure. Okay, now let's actually talk through of his skills. Um, First skill, basically what you're doing is you are attacking all of the enemies, silencing them as well, and during that time, all damage and skill effects are reflected. So basically, you're immune to damage. The main thing you're looking at here is an AoE silence, and that's actually pretty strong ability. There's right now in the game the only one who can do silence on ultimate, I believe, is Hound Steering, but that was more like a bit RNG based because per hit it kind of silence the enemy, I think. So if you're really unlucky and didn't actually hit the enemy with your RNG, then you won't do anything. But Liberal Doko Roshi, well Roshi, I'm just going to say Roshi going forward. It's actually really nice because it's AoE silence, so that's a really good control effect. Then the second effect is this looping skill, and what this one is able to do is it knock back the target every single time it hits for 1 second. And basically, I don't actually know how many times it hits an enemy. But also just jump to 2 seconds. So I'm just going to assume the basic, which is 2 seconds. Now 2 seconds is not bad in terms of interruption skill. That's kind of the fairly standard interruption skill. But also what it's also able to do is that when you successfully interrupt, this cooldown will be shortened by 60%. And in fact, when you actually have close, um, level 1 of the close, if it interrupt, the cooldown will be shortened by 80%. So what that basically means is that if you happen to actually interrupt someone, very likely that you'll be releasing this very soon, possibly right after the 2 second mark, right? Because if we think about how long a loop skill normally the cooldown is, I think it's normally about like 12 seconds to 15 seconds, or somewhere between 10 to 15 seconds, I feel like. So basically what that means is that if you do 80% cooldown reduction, so assume it's 15 seconds, then that basically means 80% reduction, so that basically makes your cooldown is 3 seconds. Now the enemy is already knocked back by 2 seconds, so pretty much as soon as the enemy is out of knocking back or out of the interruption, you can potentially be hitting them again. And if they will happen to release a skill as soon as they come out of the control, you'll be interrupting them again. And when that happens, you can reset your cooldown again, and potentially this can go back to back if you're actually lucky. So a bit RNG involved depending on whether the enemy is actually releasing skill, but can potentially be really, really suppressive interruption effect because you just fire off back to back, and you can potentially interrupt enemies for like a good 10 seconds in total if you do it 3 times, right? So that is actually a really strong ability. Then we have this trigger ability. So this is basically just self protection, but basically every single time when he's hit, he get a damage reduction for 10 seconds, and also the damage reduction for 14%. So 10 seconds is actually quite a long time. Normal attack normally happens every 1.5 seconds, I want to say. So basically, that means within those 10 seconds, you're likely to be hit about 5 or 6 times. And assuming, for example, if you put Libradoko up in the front row, what that basically means is you can potentially always be constantly on a 70 or 80% damage reduction. Not saying it's a good idea to put him on front row, but it's certainly not a bad idea because of this, because he is definitely able to do quite a lot of self protection through this trigger skill. And then lastly, we move on to a halo effect, which is basically saying that whenever he's present, all of the allies in the back row is likely to the likelihood of them getting critical hit is reduced by 40%, and damage caused by enemies might. This is a really, really bad translation. Basically ignore the translation. There's a lot of bugs with Roshi's translation, but what this is trying to say is not actually caused by enemies might. What is caused by enemies might, but this is not all enemies. It's only specters. So basically, it says the description here, monitoring the sale of the hated. So basically, it's only the specters would have the ability or ultimate skill reduced by 80% for the first time. And that basically is the specters, but not including the gods. So Hypno, Thanatos, they're not affected. It's only the likes of, Radamances, Papiamute, that kind of specters. Now, when we move on to close, the first one I talked about shortened by 80%, so that's pretty OP. Second one, not only the ultimate not only silence them, they're also not able to deal normal attack. And basically, this is also really strong because it's not just talking about normal attack, it's also if they're not actually attacking, they won't be able to gain in Cosmo. So to some extent, you're also suppressing them, cut their Cosmo as a result of your ultimate. So that's kind of why this is also really strong. Then the third effect is the debuff effect can only be removed by strong purification. Basically, I think that means the likes of Sean Close would not be able to remove this debuff. So once again, that's also very meta relevant. And then the last one, um, rather than increasing the likelihood of just your back row allies being critted, now it's actually all of your allies, so that's really good. The only caveat is that if you're playing this with Athena Gold Class, Athena Gold Class actually benefit from getting a crit hit, so maybe they are not best suited in the same team if you actually have his close to the max. And also the other thing is the caused by the arcane of all the enemy threats. So this actually says the spectre now, which is the good translation, and now this is reduced by 80%. So previously it was just the first ultimate, now it actually all of the ultimate. So that's actually really nice. The only thing is right now the specters are not really frequently played. Radamanthus is actually really nice to be honest, but he's is only going to be playable once his exclusive alliance out in the future. So right now you don't really see much Radamanthus. And then you also have the next one, probably the most frequently seen specter is going to be Papillon Mule. But Papillon Mule's ultimate is his awakening stuff. So I don't even know whether he even do any damage with his awakening because his ultimate just the fact that he transform, but his actual damage is all coming from his looping skill. It's just that when he transform, he uses one specific type of looping skill. So I think those actually count as looping skill rather than ultimate. And yeah, so as a result, basically this is not going to see any value in the current meta. And that's kind of why I don't actually think it's worth going all the way to level 30, because the second ability, first of all, doesn't really mean much, and the first ability actually kind of hindrance Athena Gokos. But previously it was bad. It does affect the Athena Gokos as well, but at least it doesn't affect the front row ally. And Athena Gokos is a tank, so you can play Athena Gokos up front. But now because it affects all the allies, I actually really don't think you should get him his close to level 30 as a result. So just be wary of this effect. Now when we move on to Constellation, there's a translation error again. But basically, what you see here is that it increases all the hit and dodge rate by 1% every second, up to 30 times every single second. And the 9 out of 9, it just changed to 2%. This is actually a translation error. It shouldn't be the hit rate and dodge rate anymore when it's 9 out of 9. This I changed to the attacking, either the attack stats and crit or attacking speed and crit. I can't remember which one. But yeah, basically he buffed up the offensive ability at 9 out of 9 and the defensive ability are 3 out of 9, I believe. So basically, that is kind of what his constellation is going to do. Now, in fact, sorry, give me one second. Let me just confirm the constellation. I need to look at the actual translation from a different language, like in the Chinese version, just to confirm what it is. I do want to get the percentage right as well, whether it's 1% or 2%. Um, Okay, so it is 2%, and it's attack, so pure attack stats, and also crit stats. So yeah, so basically, every single second you're going to increase 2% attack stats and also crit stat. So basically, what that means is 30 seconds later, all of your knights on the team is going to be 60% higher in attack and 60% higher in crit rate. Very, very useful, and this actually makes Roshi a good candidate for boss battle as a result, because he is just going to be passively increasing your attacking power as a whole. So that's kind of why this is also a very good skill to get. So yeah, so overall, I would say Constellation get maxed out 9 out of 9. Close, I think level 20 is going to be sufficient. To be honest, I don't see any value to go any higher than level 20. Now, in terms of Alaya, what you really want to do is focus on speed and haste, because a lot of the skills Roshi do really depend on whether you're able to launch it before the opponent. For example, if you're able to silence the opponent before they release ultimate, essentially delay when they're able to release ultimate. If you're able to interrupt enemy skill by releasing your skill first, then you get that head advantage and then much more higher chance of you interrupting again and therefore reduce your cooldown, do this back to back. So too many of Roshi's ability actually is relying on you attacking before the enemy attacks. So therefore anything to do with speed or haste is always going to be beneficial on Roshi. So they will probably be the best choice in terms of your alliance.